boys and girls. We are back today with our Read Aloud, the BFG. So if you remember from last week, we stopped in the middle of a chapter because I knew you guys had a lot of work to do on Thursday, so I didn't want to make the Read Aloud too long. So we stopped in the middle of the chapter titled Dream Catching. And so if you remember, the BFG caught a dream, and it was a really good dream. And he was yelling at Sophie, quick, a jar, bring me a jar. And then she gave him a jar, and then he put the dream in the jar. Then he went up and caught another dream. And this dream was not so good, right? He called it a Trogglehumper dream. And he said it was bad. Sophie said, I've had a nightmare. And he said, oh, this is worse than a nightmare. He said, this one would make your teeth stand on end. If you got into this one, your blood would be freezing to icicles and your skin would go creeping across the floor. And that's where we stopped. Okay, so that's what they're talking about right now. Is it as bad as that? Sophie asked. It is worse, cried the BFG. This is a real wopsy grob switcher. You said it was a Trogglehumper, Sophie told him. It is a Trogglehumper, cried the exasperated BFG, but it is also a bog thumper and a grab switcher. It is all three riddled into one. Oh, I is so glad I is clutching it tight. Ah, you wicked beastie, you, he cried, holding up the jar and staring into it. Never more is you going to be bunk-doodling the poor little human beanie toddlers. Sophie, who was also staring into the glass jar, cried out, I can see it! There's something in there. Of course there's something in there, the BFG said. You is looking at a frightsome Trogglehumper. But you told me that dreams were invisible, Sophie said. They is always invisible until they is captured, the BFG told her. After that, they is losing a little of their invisibility. We is seeing this one very clearly. Inside the jar, Sophie could see the faint scarlet outline of something that looked like a mixture between a blob of gas and a bubble of jelly. It was moving violently, thrashing against the sides of the jar in forever changing shape. It's wiggling all over the place, Sophie cried. It's fighting to get out. I'll bash it to bits, Sophie yelled. The nastier the dream, the angrier it is getting when it is in prison, the BFG said. It is the same as with wild animals. If an animal is very fierce and you putting it in a cage, it will make a tremendous rumpeldumpus. If it is a nice animal, like a cock-a-doodle-loo or a frogglefrump, it will sit quietly. Dreams is exactly the same. This one is a nasty, fierce, begrotting nightmare. Just look at him, splashing himself all over the glass. It is quite frightening, Sophie cried. I would be hating to get this one inside me on a darksome night, the BFG said. So would I, Sophie said. The BFG started putting the bottles back into the suitcase. Is that all? Sophie asked. Are we going? I is so upset by this troggle-humping, bog-thumping grob switcher, the BFG said, that I is not wishing to go on. Dream catching is finished for the day. Soon, Sophie was back in the waistcoat pocket, and the BFG was racing home as fast as he could. When at last they emerged out of the mist and came again onto the hot, yellow wasteland, all of the other giants were sprawled out on the ground, fast asleep. Okay, and there was a picture back here, Sophie looking in the jar at the dream, or the nightmare, I guess. So you can see it's moving around violently. And we'll go ahead and start our next chapter. Our next chapter is called A Trogglehumper for the Flesh Lump Eater. Any predictions from that title? I want you to be thinking about that in your head right now. They is always having 50 winks before they go scampering off to hunt human beings in the evening, the BFG said. He stopped for a few moments to let Sophie have a better look. Giants is only sleeping every then and now, he said. Not nearly as much as human beings. Human beings is crazy for sleep. Is it ever occurring to you that a human being who is 50 is spending about 20 years sleeping fast? I must admit that has never occurred to me, Sophie said. You should allow it to occur to you, the BFG said. Imagine it, please. This human being who says he is 50 has been fast asleep for 20 years and is not even knowing where he is, not even doing anything, not even thinking. It is a funny thought, Sophie said. Exactly, the BFG said, which that is his exactly. So what I is trying to explain to you is that a human being who says he is 50 is not 50. He is only 30. What about me? Sophie said. I am 8. You is not 8 at all, the BFG said. Human being babies and little chittlers is spending half their time sleeping, so you is only 4. I'm 8, Sophie said again. You may think you is 8, the BFG said, but you has spent 4 years of your life with your little eyes open. You is only 4, and please stop higgling me. Titchy little snapper whippers like you should not be higgling around with an old sage and onions who is hundreds of years more than you. Okay, so if you caught that, the BFG is saying that little children, he calls them chittlers, spend half of their lives sleeping, which is probably pretty right. I don't know the exact numbers on that, but think about it. If you have a little brother or sister, they might take a nap in the daytime. I know Ella takes about an hour nap during the day, and then she sleeps for about 11 or 12 hours at night. So over half of her day is spent, over half of 24 hours, right? A whole day is 24 hours. Over half of that day is spent sleeping. So think about that. She's saying, well, I'm 8 years old. And he's saying, no, you're not, because you've spent half of your life sleeping. So half of 8, as we know, is 4. So he's saying you're only 4 years old. So that's just something interesting. How much do giants sleep? Sophie asked. They is never wasting much time snoozling, the BFG said. 2 or 3 hours is enough. When do you sleep? Sophie asked the BFG. Even less, the BFG answered. I is sleeping only once in a blue baboon. Sophie, peeping out from her pocket, examined the 9 sleeping giants. They looked even more grotesque now than when they were awake. Sprawled out across the yellow plain, they covered an area about the size of a football field. Most of them were lying on their backs with their enormous mouths wide open, and they were snoring like foghorns. The noise was awful. Suddenly, the BFG gave a jump in the air. By gum frog, he cried. I is just having the most wopsy whiffling idea. What? Sophie said. Wait, he cried. Hold your horse feathers. Keep your skirt on. Just you wait and see what I is going to bring about. He galloped off fast to his cave with Sophie hanging on tight to the rim of his pocket. He rolled back the stone. He entered the cave. He was very excited. He was moving quickly. You stay where you is in my pocket, Huggy Bee, he said. We is doing this lovely bit of buck swashling both together. He laid aside the dream-catching net, but hung on to the suitcase. He ran across to the other side of the cave and grabbed the long trumpet thing, the one that he had been carrying when Sophie had first seen him in the village. With the suitcase in one hand and the trumpet in the other, he dashed out of the cave. What is he up to now? Sophie wondered. Peep your head up real good, the BFG said. Then you will get a fine winkle of what is going on. I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna leave you guys on a cliffhanger. I also wanted to go back here. If you guys remember, this week we're talking about adjectives. Okay, adjectives are words that are describing words. And there was a really good paragraph in here. And I just wanted to point out some adjectives because as you guys heard in the video earlier today, hopefully you watched that already. You don't have to use adjectives in your writing, but as I've told you, I don't know how many times when we do writing in class, it makes your writing sound so much better, and you can picture it in your head when you read something with adjectives, right? So if I just say, the cat ran across the room, okay? That's okay. That's a sentence. That's a good sentence, but I could make it a great sentence, okay? The white fluffy cat ran fast across the room. Okay, now you know what the cat looks like, right? It's white and it's fluffy, and you know it ran fast across the room. Okay, I'm going to read this paragraph again, and I want you guys to think about what are the adjectives that are describing words. Sophie, peeping out from her pocket, examined the 9 sleeping giants. Let's just break it down. Let's just do that sentence. So, how many giants were there? There were 9, right? They just told us 9. And what were the giants doing? They were sleeping, okay? She could have, or the author could have just said, Sophie, peeping out from her pocket, examined the giants. That's a sentence that works. But with the adjective that they put in there, now we know that there were 9 of them and they were sleeping, okay? Sprawled out across the yellow plain, they covered the area about the size of a football field. Now, we know what color the plain was. We know that it's yellow there because they used the word yellow, the adjective yellow. And then this last sentence, most of them were lying on their backs with their enormous mouths wide open, and they were snoring like foghorns. So we learned earlier that these giants are huge, but it also says here they were lying on their backs with their enormous mouths wide open. So again, enormous is a size. We know how the size of their mouths. Okay? All right, just a quick grammar lesson there for you. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.